It's weird. Like addiction's so weird because it's progressive.
Yeah.
Like for a while I had total control.
Totally.
Total control of just taking one pill a day.
Mm-hmm. What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the #1 mental health and addiction podcast, the Hopeaholics. I am your girl, Natalie Eva Marie, and these are my boys.
I'm Chad.
Hi, I'm Shane.
Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and follow us on our socials and wherever you get your podcasts.
Got a new episode dropping every Monday and Thursday. Please come check it out.
This episode is brought to you by the Infinity Group. You guys, if you or a loved one is suffering, please call us today. The number is right here on the screen. We are here for you 24/7. Now, let's get into the episode.
Haelie,
Hey,
welcome to the Hopeaholics Podcast.
thank you.
Yes.
Excited.
I'm excited too.
No,
really
we're-
excited. This is going to be a good one.
This will be a good one.
This will be a good one.
I love having couples on.
So do I.
I do.
Yeah.
It's nice because you get two sides.
Both, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah, I was looking forward to because we had his perspective, right?
Mine's very different.
Now,
Yeah, I know. And clearly, you guys have been on a journey together.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Oh yeah.
the other thing too is did I see that it was your guys' anniversary? Was that an old post?
That was in March.
I was in March. Okay, never mind. I'm not going to say happy anniversary.
Yeah,
then.
March.
Happy anniversary in March.
happy anniversary in March.
Yeah, thanks.
I didn't know you guys.
How long have you guys been married?
8 years
Okay.
together for 13.
Wow.
Long time.
Wow.
Put him through the ringer.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure he put you through a little bit too. You both did.
Totally.
Well, what I look at is that Jimmy, I feel, is a great guy. He's charismatic. He's got a great energy. And behind every exceptional man is an even greater woman.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I'm saying?
100%.
So you guys make an extremely dynamic duo, as far as I'm
Yeah,
concerned.
yeah.
Just
I think we
based-
complement each
You
other.
really
very
do.
well.
Yeah.
You know?
I always say it is really important, especially for like the younger generation. It is important like who you choose as your partner because it'll make you or break you in the sense of good decisions, bad decisions, self-confidence, all of the things that you look for in a partner is, essential to happy, healthy, and well-being and success.
Yeah. And I think that we're opposite, but in a good way.
Oh,
Alike,
yeah.
but opposite.
Yeah.
Personalities, I'm a little bit more strong-headed.
Yeah.
I think that's important too, because I think good leaders need a strong-headed woman. Because like my wife is not afraid to tell me the truth about myself, where everybody else will be like,
Chad, you're great.
yeah, because
Yeah, you're like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like that with Jimmy,
because I pay them.
Yeah.
She says they're paid to say yes to you.
Totally.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm going to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
You're not doing that.
Yeah.
That's a stupid move.
Yeah.
She'll tell me that.
She has your back.
Which
Yeah.
is important though, but it's also because, and you listen to her because you respect her, and that's why it works.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't, then you would hear whatever she has to say and say, whatever.
Yeah.
Do whatever you're gonna do anyways. But you have to have that equal kind of respect for one another,
True.
But let's get into how you guys even met, because you guys met in high school.
We met in middle school.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. We met in middle school. So, I mean, how long do we have?
We have an hour and a half.
Yeah. We got time.
I mean, I'll just honestly start from the beginning.
Lay it out there.
So it's crazy. I have 5 years next Tuesday,
Congratulations.
which is nuts.
That's huge.
because Looking back, I would have never thought that I would be here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In this room, but like where I'm at in my life. So grew up in Huntington, 34, same age as Jimmy. I was raised by my parents, mom and dad. And then I have a younger brother and sister. So I'm 8 and 9 years older than them.
Oh, wow.
Big age gap. The dad that I was raised by isn't my biological dad, but he raised me since I was 2.5. So when I was a year old, my mom had left my bio dad, and which is pretty crazy. I have such like a huge respect for my mom because I feel like women can get stuck in these like toxic relationships or marriages and they just stay because it's just easier. But he was abusive and he, you know, had alcohol problems. So she was like, you're never going to see Haelie again. So my parents both grew up in Orange County. My dad went to Newport Harbor. My mom went to Estancia and Costa Mesa. So they had known each other in high school, hung out in Newport Beach. So they were friends. And then, you know, they rekindled years later and she had me, who was 2.5. And I mean, my mom had me when she was 21. So pretty young. And again, I do respect her so much for leaving because not many 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds would be like, peace, I'm just going to do it myself. So they started, you know, dating, getting serious. And that's like kind of all I knew. That was my, you know, male figure in my life that I called my dad, you know? So growing up, he was in the process of like legally adopting me. And that process kind of takes a while just through, you know, that guardian has to, you know, sign off, you know, legal rights too. But, so that was kind of in the process, until I was in 6th grade. And honestly, like my parents, I grew up in a really nice home. My dad's a business owner. So my mom was like classic American family, stay at home with the kids. She was a great mom. And my dad was just always busy, always working. I didn't play many sports growing up. I think I was on a soccer team when I was like 5. And then, I am half Hawaiian. So my mom was like, okay, let's get you into like hula dancing. I'm like 5 years old, took a couple hula lessons. And then I got serious into dancing when I was probably like 9 or 10. And I did that for years and I competed and, just a good kid, you know, but I always was kind of like, my parents didn't hide it from me that the fact like, this isn't your biological dad. Like I had known that like I was pretty intuitive at a young age, you know? But I kind of always felt like not a disconnect, but sort of like, you know, once my brother and sister came along and they looked like both my parents, I was kind of like, it was always like in the forefront of my mind, I guess, you know? But when I was in 6th grade, he legally adopted me. And that was great. And I went to a middle school in Huntington. And then my parents bought a house on the other side of Huntington. So I transferred to Dwyer Middle School where I met Jimmy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fell hard.
Jimmy.
In the
Yeah.
6th grade?
7th. Oh, wow. 7th. So my good friend and I went to that middle school in 6th grade. And then when I transferred, we were like, oh my gosh, we were like inseparable, her and I. And she was a little bit faster pace, you know, because I feel like when I was younger, I was kind of like a rule follower. I was kind of like, I'm not going to, you know, I was around like, I think when I switched to Dwyer compared to the middle school that I went to in 6th grade, Dwyer was faster pace in the sense of like, these kids are exposed to, you know, some of them were single parents and they had that freedom after school. Hey, do you want to come over to my house? You know, so I was in 7th grade, like exposed to, you know, these kids smoking weed. And I was like, it didn't like, oh, I'm going to go cry and go home. But it was kind of like, oh, like, I'm not going to touch that stuff, you know? So I met Jimmy. We were always friends. I mean, I fell in love with him right when I saw him. Ridiculous.
Wow.
I always laugh about it. I'm like, oh my gosh. So 7th grade, you know, drank a little bit. Once I went to, you know, got acclimated. Once I went to, got into 8th grade, I was way acclimated with my friends, and me and my best friend always hung out with like older kids. I think Jimmy and, you know, a couple of our friends were our age, but the rest we were hanging out with like kids in high school, even sometimes kids that were out of high school. And no, you know, middle schoolers don't have any business hanging out with, you know, older kids like that. I know I wouldn't let my daughter, who's going to be 13, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So 8th grade, kind of started drinking a little bit more, you know, take my dad's Coors Light out of the fridge, my mom's Malibu, like just small things. 8th grade summer, I tried speed for the first time. And it was like, at that time, me and my girlfriend were hanging out with some girls in high school. And I think speed was big back then. I mean, I'm sure every drug's big right now, you know what I mean? But like, that was like, girls were taking it to lose weight and, you know, getting skinny. So the first time I tried it, I was like, whoa, fucking really like this. This is crazy. I stayed up all night, like met probably 20 friends that night. And I went home the next day, had been up all night. And my mom was like, I think I was like biting on my lip or something. And I had like a bruised lip. My mom was like, what is that? Oh, I don't know. And she was like, oh, okay. I was like, wow, I just got away with that. You know, like I don't know if that was, it's not that she was like, didn't care, but it was just kind of like, I could get away with, you know, just lying to her. And I'm like only 14. And I just did speed all night, like crazy. So once I got into high school, I always tell everyone, wasn't a good student at all. Like, I'm not dumb. I don't have a learning disability. I just didn't want to try. So I was always getting in trouble for that. You know, always getting in trouble for either my tone of voice or my bad grades. And then freshman year, I got a serious boyfriend. And I think looking back, like that, it kind of taught me a lot, but I think it kept me out of trouble. I don't want to say, does that make sense?
Yeah,
like he kind of kept me, and he was a good kid, couple of years older than me, drove, and I'm like, nice,
yeah,
convenient, hello. So, and like, just to preface, like all throughout high school, I'm only like, you know, I'm 5'1", and I never really cared too much about like my weight. Like I've always felt like I was very comfortable in my skin. You know, kind of more reserved, kind of more shy. I think I lacked a little bit of like self-confidence always as a young age. I don't know why. So, you know, was with him freshman to senior year. And my parents always told me like, you know, I would tell them kind of like, I knew that I had a biological family. I knew that I had biological sisters, biological brothers. Like I was kind of, you know, I was kind of a shithead as a teenager. Bad grades, tone of voice, and whenever I would get like grounded, I'm like, which sounds so rude to say, but I'm like, my dad's really gonna ground me for, you know, months on end. He's not even like my real dad. So I kind of was going through that, like almost having like resentments, a little bit. I know it sounds crazy, but just that like teenage, like rebellious, like. So, I kind of put it out there to my parents, like, hey, like, you know, I would like to meet my biological dad. And my parents were like, hey, like when you're 18, like you can do whatever you want. You can go meet him, but until you're 18, like, you know, you're at home with us. Okay. So I turn 18 and I'm like, I want to meet him. And they were honestly supportive. Very supportive. I would always go to my mom for things because she was just, my dad being his first, he was kind of like strict in a way.
Yeah.
And I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, like his parenting I'm doing with, you know, my kids, like he was just such a great dad. But so I asked my boyfriend, I'm like, hey, like, do you want to go to Utah with me and meet my bio dad and then, you know, the rest of my family? And he was like, yeah. So we flew out to Utah. They all live in Utah. And I think we were there for less than a week. And it was a trip to me when I met my bio dad. Like I didn't grow up with, you know, him, so I never looked like my dad, you know, and I was kind of like, oh shit, this is weird, you know, this is like, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel. Yeah. He's super nice, super cool. Like he even told me like, Haelie, like I signed those rights off because I knew Chris was going to give you, you know, such a good life. And I'm like, you know, I'm willing to get to know you. But I'm never going to call you dad. And he was totally cool with that. He was like, yeah, like, you know. So, and my boyfriend at the time got along with him and, you know, have a big family. So it was kind of cool to, you know, meet everyone and kind of get connected in that way. And I had an aunt that lived out there, and she goes, well, I love California. I haven't been out there in years. Like, I'll come back home with you. And I'm like, yeah, like come back home. I was still living with my parents, obviously. And she came out to California for a week. And the plan was to, her to come out to California. And then, you know, this is summertime. So, and then I would, you know, fly back to Utah and just spend more time with everyone. And my boyfriend had to work, so he stayed behind. So we fly back out there, you know, just getting to know everyone a little bit more. And they go, yeah, well, we do a camping trip, you know, every year. We'd love to show you, you know, like where I think my grandma was like, had like a, I don't know, some sort of like time capsule there or something like that. We go camping every summer there. Okay, that'd be great. And mind you, like that side of the family is Mormon, so no one like drinks.
Yeah.
You know, I think my aunt drank, and my cousin, you know, one of my cousins drank. And again, like I would kind of have fun on the weekends in high school, but I never wanted to be completely out of control. You know, there's kids when I was, you know, senior year that were doing ecstasy, and I was like, like, I'm not going to touch that, but I'll drink a little bit. So, I did notice that when I was out there for the second time, my biological dad was being a little bit like territorial. And I was like, kind of like got that, like, again, intuitive person. Since I was at a very young age,
Yeah.
it just felt off. You know, I was just kind of like, it's a little weird.
Yeah.
Down to like, okay, we're all going to caravan to this camping site, and it was kind of like, well, no, you come with me. And I was like, okay, like, you know. So we went camping, and there was a huge group of us, and you know, he sexually abused me. Second time meeting him.
Oh shit.
Yeah. And it's so weird, like, retelling the story, because I'm like, it's weird saying it out loud, but I'm healed from it, you know. But that was when I was 18. Damn. So second time meeting him, I remember, you know, waking up the next day, and I told my aunt and my uncle, I want to leave. Like, I want to leave. And I was like, I don't know how to explain how I felt, but I just felt gross.
Yeah.
Kind of like, well, what the fuck did I do?
Yeah.
To like, what even happened? So I call my parents. Obviously, as you can imagine, they're freaking out.
Jesus.
They booked me a flight home 2 days earlier, because I was like, I just want to be home. Like, so got home. And I remember, like, it sounds so heavy, but I remember like calling him and being like, why? You know, and like there's people out there that are sick.
Yeah.
And his response was just gross and disgusting. And I got home, and my parents were like, they're besides themselves. I was kind of like at a point where I was kind of, I just feel like itchy in my own skin, you know? So my parents were like, we want to like go after him, like, you know, prosecute him. And I'm like, I don't want to deal with all that. Like, I don't want to, like, I think I was numb. So I ended up getting into therapy. My mom was like, you know, let's get you into therapy. And I went to a therapy session with this one therapist, and she gave me the most ridiculous assignment to do. She's like, write a letter, you know, and then our second session, she's like, okay, now I want you to write a letter from him to you. And I was like, fuck this.
Yeah.
I'm good. And I think, again, like going back to, you know, me being numb, like I think that I kind of, in the back of my head, like was obviously had just gone through something so traumatic, but my defense mechanism with myself was kind of like, I'm fine. Like it is what it is, you know. Broke up with my boyfriend for, you know, long, you know, that long relationship. I was, you know, drinking a lot more. And I will always say, like, from the moment first time I got drunk, like, not a good drunk. You know, you hear of like, I'm allergic to alcohol.
Yeah.
It just me and alcohol just don't mix. I'm happy for a little bit and then I'm just angry.
Yeah.
So started drinking a little bit more, and I just noticed myself, like, just, you know, all those feelings were coming up, and I'm like, damn, like, I have some shit to work through, you know, like I went through something, you know, it was a big deal. Like, this is you know, this is kind of like life-changing a little bit, because I just felt different, just not happy anymore. But, so I kind of, started, you know, I wanted to like lose weight. So I'm like, again,
What you can control.
What I can control. So I started doing the binge and purging thing. And it wasn't even to like, if I eat this and I purge, I'm going to lose weight. It was the control for me.
Sure.
You know,
You have the power.
I have the power. And so at that time I started working for my dad and his company. And at first I was just doing basic filing, and then I became the office manager. And so I'm struggling, you know, obviously not that I know yet struggling with my eating disorder, but it's starting, you know? And I'm like, okay, well, my work overload's getting a little bit more at my dad's. Like, I heard about Adderall. What the fuck's that? Well, it's, you know, a pill that college kids take.
Right.
All right. Started doing my Google searches. And like, you know, I'm like, oh gosh, like maybe I'm ADD. Hello. Like, I've procrastinated my whole life. Like, start a project, don't finish it, can't focus. So went to a psychiatrist in Huntington. And I go, you know what? I think I'm ADD. She said, well, why do you think that? And I had previously looked at, okay, well, when you get diagnosed with ADD, what are the questions they're going to ask you? You know? So she goes, okay, we'll start you on a 10 milligram, see how you feel, and I'll see you back in a month. I'm like, okay, this is probably 19 when I you know, got that script. And I took it and I was like, oh shit, this is what I've been missing. You know, this is the magic pill. Like, I'm focused. I'm talkative. I'm social. And the best part is I'm losing weight. You know, it's kind of like, this is great. So started losing weight, still very active in my eating disorder. You know, 2 things happening at once that are just recipe for disaster. And then Jimmy and I, you know, I think he said when he was on here, like, we were always friends. You know, I feel like I could always go to him and talk to him about anything. So I confided to him what I had gone through with my biological dad, which is crazy because we had always been friends, but that's like some, you know, you don't tell just anyone that. So I remember taking a trip to Havasu together with our friends, and I always say, like, ever since that trip, we were like inseparable, like truly, like just had stayed together since then. And I got pregnant at 20, and we had only been together for a few months. Got pregnant, and like I said, I had a little bit of like that rule follower in me and wanted to do everything right. So when I got pregnant, off that shit. Don't need it. I'm going to stay, you know, sober. I don't even think I drank coffee when I was pregnant. Like, I was very like by the book, you know? So we had, you know, Harper when we were 21, and I had gained, 65 pounds because I was just kind of like, had that mindset of like pregnant, eating for two. And then after the baby came, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
It's like a little bit too much weight. Did the breastfeeding thing for a little bit, but looking back selfishly, I think I was just like, I have a quicker fix to this. Stopped breastfeeding, got back on my script. It's weird. Like addiction's so weird because it's progressive.
Yeah.
Like for a while I had total control of just taking one pill a day. That was what I was prescribed. I'm not going to take any more than that. But, I would go back to the doctor and how's this doing? Well, kind of, I'm not noticing anything. Okay, well, we'll bump your script up to, 20. So, I just noticed that everything was kind of getting like progressively a little bit worse. I remember hitting up Jimmy one day and I was like, hey, like, I think I have like, I'm taking a little bit more than I should of my script. Like, will you hold it for me and just like give me my dose a day? That worked for a day.
Yeah.
I was like,
we just talked about that yesterday.
Totally.
Yeah.
Sounds insane.
Yeah.
She's like, where are they? Can we just give them back? I'm
No,
fine.
totally. Like you give your dope back to somebody and
I think
you're
we
like,
said that. It was
I'm
either
gonna
that.
wait,
It's
and then you're
just-
mad at yourself when you like,
then you
what did I
realize,
do?
fuck,
And
why did I do
shit
that?
back.
Yeah.
And
I think that I was getting like better at manipulating.
Sure, of course.
So I remember like, oh no, I'm fine.
Yeah.
You can give it back to me. We had our second daughter, Hampton, when we were 25. Yeah, 25. We got married when she was 6 months old.
Wow.
And I remember, so I'm still working for my dad's, company. And I just remember, Jimmy, Jimmy worked a lot.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll handle the finances. No worries. I got it. I could pay an electricity bill. What are we talking about? That's easy. He's always been great about saving money and, we're going to get a home someday. And I'm like, okay, so I'm working away and, without to go into that detail, but I got fired from my dad's company because I made some pretty bad decisions, and I'm very open and honest how I used to be in my addiction. I'm a liar, manipulator, thief, like all the things. So lost my job with him. That's right around when Jimmy got sober. And he was like, he told his story on here. He just knew, he was like, I felt like shit and I just, gonna get sober. And I was like, okay, like I'll do this sober thing with you. So I was able to obtain 60 days. And that was like, I talked about it on a YouTube that we had posted. Like I was white knuckling it.
Sure.
One of our good friends is actually coming up on 13 years this year. And he brought up within that 60 days, hey, you should go to AA meeting with me up in, Long Beach. It's a speaker meeting. It's great. I'm like, okay, I'll go. I went and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I'm not like these people.
Yeah.
This is like a cult.
Yeah.
What they're saying is like pretty cool. And like, there were some things that I had resonated with, but I'm like, I am not. Like, I don't belong here. Like, I'm not like them, Such a crazy, like, thing to think about. So 60 days kind of, eating, I think I went on juice cleanse. I talked about that too. Like, I think like when you're an addict and you don't do the work, you don't put the work in, you look for every shortcuts. Exactly. Shortcuts. So and mind you, like when I had lost my job at my dad's, like I didn't have a relationship with my family for 3 years. So I fucked up big time. So 3 years didn't have a relationship. I would talk to my mom here and there, but, very minimal.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm finally going to go get therapy. I'm going to, like I'm going to try to, kind of dig up my skeletons in my closet and kind of like get help. So I did. I went to this therapist in Huntington, and, you know, he brought up AA. He's like, oh, you know, I think you should probably work the steps. I think you have like a drinking problem. And I'm like, what? No. Like, going through something so big, I'm like, I still wasn't at that surrender point where I'm like, okay, like I have a problem, you know? So he goes, you kind of show signs of like bipolar. I'm like, which is the worst thing that I could hear, because it always seemed like I was looking for that thing to like, that's my problem. I'm bipolar. Cool. Like, that's, you know, I don't have a problem with drugs. I'm bipolar. So they put me on mood stabilizer, antidepressants.
Oh, shit.
And my sick head, I was like, gosh, taking these pills, hopefully I feel some sort of like,
yeah,
you know, not high, but just feel better, I guess. So past 60 days, I was, you know, I always felt like when everyone was watching, when I was in the hot seat, I was doing good. I was like, well, all eyes are on me. Like, I have to, you know, I have to perform. So once I and it was always when everyone was kind of like on my back type of thing. And again, like, I got pretty good at manipulating. So, you know, Jimmy back then would take my word for it. He would take it at face value and be like, okay, like, you know. So went back to the psychiatrist, and I told them, I'm like, because I was working no program. I was not spiritually fit at all. I was just, again, white knuckling it. So I went back to the psychiatrist that I went to originally, had been going to for years. And I go, well, I can't focus anymore. You know, I want to get back on, you know, Adderall. And that doctor I could tell her to do anything. Yeah. And, you know, she was, here you go. You know your body better than me, here. So I got back on Adderall, and I went 3 years hiding everything, claiming that I was sober. I was laughing last time because I'm like, oh my gosh, like when you think that you're like pulling things off, you know, and you're just lying to everyone. Like, you really think that like
you're doing great. Like,
you're doing good.
Yeah.
You're doing good. So I would wear the Serenity prayer necklace around my neck, like just doing it, just claiming it, you know. And Jimmy's, you know, sober, really, you know, sober and doing his thing. And I got so deep into it that in those 3 years, I was not paying the bills. I had drained our savings account. I felt insane. Yeah. It was like the angel and the devil were on my shoulder. Yep. You know? Yep. I didn't want to live how I was living, but I didn't want to give it up either. Like as sick as that sounds, you know? And I'm sure a lot of like addicts.
I'm right there with you.
You know?
Totally get it. Yep.
You're like, God, I want to do the right thing. But man, I don't want to give up that like high, you know? But in the end, I mean, towards the end, like in 2019, like I wasn't having, and I hate to even ever glorify any using or drinking, but like I wasn't having fun anymore. I was just taking it to operate on the day to day. Right. You know, because if I didn't, I would be asleep on the couch, you know? So 2019, Jimmy broke his arm like bad. I think he was at a TSOL concert in the mosh pit. He broke his arm, shattered it. And
dumbass.
That's why we don't go to those things.
Yeah. Mosh pit, no bueno.
I called her. I think my arm's broken. She's like, "You're a fucking idiot." I was like, "All right,
she say
meet me
that?
at the hospital."
Probably.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So he ends up getting like, he has to go to a specialist. goes to Cedar Sinai, like gets his gnarly surgery. Well, he goes on disability, like, and I just remember like, okay, you have to do the disability form and you have to do all that. And yeah, I got it. I'll handle it. And then again, like my spending was out of control. Just on shit.
Yeah.
Like dumb stuff. I remember organizing our fridge one day for like 6 hours.
Totally.
Madness.
Yeah.
So just, spending money on stupid shit that I had nothing to show for. And I was still in charge of, finances, and, Jimmy goes on disability. So I ended up draining all that money. And I remember like just feeling like every day, like, oh my gosh, like this burden that I'm carrying, these lies that I'm telling, like I can like barely breathe. Like it just got to be too much, but I don't know. I just kind of kept going. And then it was when he asked for like the login or something like that. And I was like, oh God, like I am so screwed. Like he wants to like, see what money's in that account, and like, how am I going to, is it time? Do I just come clean? But I was like, no, I can sell furniture that's in our garage. I can sell things around the house. I have old iPhones that I can go sell. I went to sell an iPhone in a parking lot. Like I was trying to scrounge anything that I could to keep up this facade. And I think it was so like, when you're an addict, you're super selfish. You're super self-absorbed. You only really think of yourself.
Yep.
So I remember it was getting closer to summer, and Jimmy and I were trying to, do therapy, and it was, I wasn't all in to it. We were trying. We went to, Jimmy talked about this last time, our friend Chris, who's a pastor. So, we had a therapy session scheduled, and, I remember, I think the day before, 2 days prior, we were fighting all the time. It was always like, my like take on everything is like, oh, woe is me. You're being, you know what I mean? Poor me type of thing. So I think I was up for like, I don't know, 24 hours, something like that. And I was like, as dumb and crazy as it sounds, like I was like building furniture. Jimmy had taken the girls to his mom's house. We got in a gnarly fight, and I was just up, just doing my thing. And I'm like, God, I was so exhausted of this life. Like, I'm just like, I'm not happy, like at all. This is miserable. And again, Jimmy talks about this, many times, and we kind of like see eye to eye with this, is always prayed when like I wanted something materialistic. I had no connection with God. But that night I was kind of like, God, like looked at myself in the mirror. I'm like, what am I doing? Like I need help, but I need the strength to like come clean to everything that I've done. Everything. And I was scared. Like I said, I was scared to kind of give up that like life, and I was scared to get caught, and I was just kind of scared of what like my future would look like. So we had a therapy session the next day. Jimmy's in the gym. I called him. I'm like, hey, I don't feel good. Like I just like I'd get bruising all over me. Like I think lack of sleep, the pills that I was on, like you mix that, like, come on, wasn't eating. He's like, oh God, it's always fucking something with you. I'm like, well, you just meet me at Prompt Care, in Huntington. Okay. So I get there, drove myself there. And I think like, when I walked in, I must've looked so crazy because I'm like running on 0 sleep. And I just like, oh, I think I have something's going on with me. Like, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, like, brought me into the back, and they're like, well, so what's going on? And I'm like, all right, Haelie, you have 2 decisions. You keep this up, and you come up with whatever the hell disease you think you have, or you just ask for help. So the doctor, I looked at her and I'm like, I'm a drug addict. And it was so hard for me to wrap my head around, you know, for years. So I'm like, I'm not like that.
Right.
You know, I'm getting prescribed these meds. Like, I'm not shooting up anything in my arms. Like, I'm fine. I go, I want to go to, like, I need to go to rehab like today. And so obviously they were very, very caring, and, you know, let me call Hogue in Newport and see if we can get you a bed. And so I picked up the phone. I called our friend Chris and I go, I'm going to rehab. Mm-hmm. And he was like, at this point in my life, everyone, friends, family, Jimmy's friend, like whoever knew me knew that I was, I mean, they knew it. Mm-hmm. They were just, I think everyone was just waiting to like, okay, well, she's going to have to ask for help. Like, you know, she's, if we do I think if people did an intervention with me, it wouldn't have worked.
For sure.
You know, I had to be kind of the one. So I go, God, Jimmy's out in the parking lot now. I'm like, I'm so scared to like tell Jimmy. And he's like, no, like it's going to be okay. You know, it's going to be hard, but I'm proud of you. Like, you know, you're making that first step. So, go out to the parking lot, tell Jimmy, I'm like, I'm going to rehab. You need to take me to Hogue in Newport. And he was every emotion probably that you could think of: sad, mad, angry, had questions. So he dropped me off at the ER at Hogue. I wanted to do it by myself, you know, but I think he was so angry that it just got out of the car and, you know, went to the ER. And I hadn't had a relationship with my parents for a few years. Called up my mom, like, I'm going to rehab. And obviously at that, you know, when I surrendered like that, everyone's like, you know, yes, like, finally, thank God, you know. So my mom came, I think my sister was there. I was kind of out of it, but I got driven I did a detox for a little bit at a place in Cyprus. And then after a few days of that, I went to something with insurance. I went to Garden Grove. It was like a co-ed place. It was dingy. And I mean, rehabs aren't always, you know, a hotel.
Yeah.
But I was like, I just don't think I'm going to get better here. It's co-ed. I don't like how I feel. And I think honestly, you could get sober at any rehab. I think I was just freaking out of like, oh God, I'm scared. Mm-hmm. Oddly enough, I met some girl that went to kindergarten with Jimmy. She was at that rehab. Gosh. She had her phone. So I was like, please let me use it. Calling my mom, calling Jimmy. I'm not going to get better here. You guys you really need to like, you know, take my word for it. No one trusted me. Yeah. You have zero trust with anyone, you know? So finally my mom was like, okay, all right. I ended up here in San Juan at
Hope.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Ended up here. My mom drove me here. And I'm like, no, I'm still really far away from home. 30 minutes. And I think something with my insurance, it didn't work out. So I ended up going to Safe Harbor in Costa Mesa. All women's, you know.
That's good.
Yeah. Sure. I really loved it there. From the moment I stepped in there, it felt like, under the circumstances, it felt like, okay, I think I could get better here, you know? So with, you know, all women, and I think this was, this is now, my sober date is June 18th. So this is kind of like I had been in already for like 2 weeks. So our daughter's birthday lands on July 2nd. And I was in treatment. And I'm sitting in a group and I'm like, I had this like epiphany. I'm like, oh, the girl's birthday is in, you know, a couple days. Like, I'll be fine. Like, if I leave rehab and go back home and, you know, get into the program, like I could stay sober. And I remember wanting to leave that day. I called up Chris again. Hey, come pick me up. And he's all, yeah, sounds good. Never came.
Calls me right after.
Yeah.
Hey, have you talked to Haelie? She said I'd pick her up. I'm like, fuck no, dude. You are not picking her up.
Yeah, at this time, Jimmy's sober, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He's, you're 3 years ahead of me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were about
Yeah.
3 years sober. And I remember like, wanting to leave, and I had, staff swarming me
Sure.
and just saying like, Haelie, like, this is like your disease talking. And I was like, how dare you? Like, I still wasn't like, I knew that I wanted sobriety, but I was still not at that point where I'm like, okay, well, I'm in, treatment with this girl. It's her 10th time being to rehab. Like I'm not like these, people. And so, I don't know, something came over me and I was like, you know what? All right, I'm going to do, my insurance is really good. They're going to let me stay for 90 days.
Wow.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to freaking put my head down and take guidance. Guidance was a really hard thing for me. And I talk about that a lot because I'm stubborn. I have a strong personality, but I'm like, you know what? My way has not worked.
Totally.
4 years. It has not worked. Like I'm going to take advice from the professionals and just put in the work. So got a sponsor, got into the program. Rehab was interesting for me, but the best thing for me because it showed me, humility. You have to wake up at a certain time. You have to do chores. You have to make your bed. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm like kind of everything that was so basic towards the end of my addiction turned into not even possible for me to do.
Yeah.
When cleaning the kitchen was like nearly impossible. So, you kind of just lose control of your whole life. So, during rehab, I learned a lot about, I got reconnected with God, with my spiritual advisor there, going through very intense therapy, learning a lot about boundaries. And at this point, Jimmy was done. He's like, we'll co-parent, but like, this is like been years of the same, bullshit.
Yeah.
Just same thing. And that kind of took me a minute to accept, but I got to a point where I was like, okay, like you need to do this for you. Cause I feel like every single time I tried the sober thing, it was like, cause I was in deep shit or someone, wanted me to get sober, whatever it was. I never had done it for myself, So, I completed, 90 days. I had a sponsor, was working my steps, got out of rehab. Jimmy got me a studio apartment in Huntington. He was living with his parents at the time with the girls. And, it's so crazy because when you are an addict in your addiction, like you hurt a lot of people, a lot. And I was kind of like with me, I feel like I burnt so many bridges and, lied and I would steal and do all this crazy shit that, gosh, when you get out, it's like when I got out, it was kind of like I was accepting of the fact that why would these people give me trust? Why would I be, invited on this family trip? It was kind of hard for me to swallow. I'm not going to lie, but it was kind of like, these are kind of the repercussions that I have to go through, Yeah. And I remember getting like, I think it was like, I don't know, maybe 5 months. And I'm like on fire because I knew within me that I was going to do it this time. And I was telling my sponsor, I'm like, all right, I'm ready to make my amends. And she's people don't, you know what I mean? Like, they don't want to hear your sorries just yet, So Jimmy and I felt that for the first time over the years, I felt like I was really making changes, and stupid little habits that I could never keep up on, like doing basic things. I was like following through on those, So Jimmy and I, ended up working things out. And I think you mentioned this last time you were on here on some of your videos. We got a 2-bedroom apartment in the same complex, and gosh, the first year of sobriety was like, it was so great, but I was just trying to kind of, figure out who Haelie was, for the first time, and, learn how to deal with like my patience and like, you know what I mean? You don't have anything. You're like, dude, you're really feeling like true feelings. So I kind of dealt with my eating disorder in rehab, but not so much. So, obviously, you know, was a year into sobriety, and I'm like still noticing. I'm like, oh God, like now I'm like overeating. My eating disorder is still very active.
Right.
And for me, like eating disorder for me is just another form of addiction.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, oh gosh, like I had gained, you know, 65 pounds, and my doctor told me from the very start, like, hey, it's going to take your body about 6 months to a year to kind of stabilize. So, and not having, you know, any amphetamines and all that, like I gained 65 pounds, and I was kind of, you know, eating whatever I wanted. And so Jimmy, you know, brought up to me, he's like, hey, he was always so sweet about it, you know, like,
let's get you in the gym right in the nicest way possible.
Not like Shane. I'm just playing.
No, you're not.
So he goes, you know, I think that, you know, especially with your personality, like, you know, I think you would really love working out. And I'm like, what? No, like, it's not for me. Like, you know, I'm happy with how I am. Like, he's like, okay. And then I was like, you know what? It's all about just willingness to do something. Like, what do I have to lose? I overcame the hardest shit in my life.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do it. So started going to the gym with him. I did not want to take direction from him at all.
Oh, yeah.
I was
Dude,
like,
it was so bad.
Dude,
That can be rough.
Oh, I'm the same.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
I didn't want, like, you know, he's like, okay, that's it. I'm hiring you a trainer.
Yeah.
What the hell?
I think you said that on the podcast.
Yeah.
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 I totally get it. Jonathan hates working out with me because it's like, dude, just shut up and do what I'm telling you to do.
Yeah, I'll be in the
countering
gym
me.
and he'll like say something like, I can't hear you. What?
Yeah.
Like full attitude though.
Yeah, I know.
Like not
That's
even
me.
like
Yeah.
not even like not wanting to listen, but like total.
Meanwhile, you guys
Total
are like
stink
gym
eye.
heads, and it's like,
I don't know what it
What's
was,
wrong?
but
Yeah.
he hired me this like badass trainer. She's, you know, old. She was older than me, killer shape. And, I was
good
like,
job hiring a female.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
She
Yeah.
was great.
Yeah.
But I just like, you know, I kind of felt that just like, I mean, I couldn't even do a sit up.
Yeah.
You know, it's like felt defeating to me, but I was like, again, Haelie, hello, you've been through the hardest thing in your life. Like, just give it a go. And then my very best friend. So as I'm training with her and, you know, losing weight and kind of like, okay, this feels good. Working out feels good. It's doing something to my brain. My best friend was like, hey, do you want to try a spin class with me? I'm like, oh God, like that like doom feeling. I'm like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, let's do it. Went. I was absolutely terrible at it, but I was like, oh, this is rad. This is like dark room for me.
Yeah, totally.
45 minutes. I have that dancing background, so I love, you know, music. Who doesn't? So I went home and I'm like, Jimmy, you gotta get me a membership to this gym. Like, you know, like I'm all in and all out, but I was putting my energy into the healthy things, you know? So
And I was holding on to the money too. So you were like,
Oh.
I really want to
Yes.
do this. And I was
Yes.
like, check it out. If you go to that studio every day for 2 weeks, I'll buy you a membership. But if you miss one day, I'm not paying for it.
yeah, I do remember that.
Cause we had the personal trainer, we had we had 2 gym memberships already.
Yeah.
So I was like, if you want this, like prove it.
Show me.
Prove it.
Yeah.
And at this point I was like on fire with everything. I'm like, I'll show you. You
2
know?
weeks, nothing.
Yeah.
Watch
He
this.
Like, watch.
She didn't miss
I'll go
shit, dude.
twice
She's like,
a day,
give me
every
that
day.
money, dog.
Yeah.
So I got really freaking good at it. I got really good at writing. I mean, I see Marin,
Yeah.
Shane's wife.
Yeah.
We're like spin. It's like a cult.
Yeah, it is a cult.
You're in it, or you're like don't understand like what could be so great about it. You
like
know,
watching.
a stationary bike.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it just made me happy. It just made me really happy. And then, you know, I'm an extremist, so I was like, maybe I'll start coaching. And you know, I
Coaching spin.
I hit up the owner and I was like, hey, if you ever, you know, need coaches, let me know. And she was like, actually, I think you'd be great at it. Let's train you. So I went through intense training, spin training, and I became a coach, I think a few months later, and I did coaching for a couple years. I loved it because I met it's so weird. Like once you get into like, you know, fitness, like you meet so many people that you are just, you have so much in common with. And the gym that I was coaching at, there's a lot of sober people there, you know? And if one thing I've noticed, like going to group fitness or just the gym in general, like you meet like people that you're like, oh, you're sober too. Like it's such like an outlet, you know, for and anyone, regardless if you're, you know, in recovery or not. But did that for almost a few years, and then decided to stay at home with the girls when Jimmy got crazy busy with work, and you know, Jimmy starting his business, and here we are today. And I can't even believe it sometimes. Because there for a while, I was totally accepting of I'm going to be this way for the rest of my life. And that's okay. Like I'm going to take these pills for the rest of my life, and I'm going to be like this, and it is what it is. You know, I was totally okay with it. Yeah. Until I just couldn't do it anymore.
Until enough of it was enough. I mean, it's incredible, the fact, because obviously, you know, with you guys experiencing this journey together, especially at such a young age, and then going through, you know, having a baby, but then also you guys are young. So you're growing up yourselves as well. Totally. And then going through both of you having an addiction, the fact that you guys were able to stick through it and stay together and give each other grace is pretty incredible. And to me, that's like, you know, God having his hand on you guys in the sense of, you both are putting in the work, so it's allowing you to have that communication to work through the nonsense, because I could only imagine how chaotic it was, especially how insane I know that it can get. Totally. But you know what I wanted to touch on too, because I think it's so important, is when you were 18 and all of that stuff happened to you, the amount of courage you had to actually say something to your parents the following day is huge. Because even though I feel that was so much trauma that was like deep rooted in you still, the fact that you didn't try to hide it and keep it a secret and let it eat you alive is really powerful too.
Well, because you hear about that.
Yeah.
You know, girls go, and what's crazy is girls go through, I mean, people go through it more than...
For sure.
I mean,
more than
all of them. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Talked about, because you know, a lot of your story I could really relate to. I really resonated with a lot of your story, because like you know, I had a lot of the same type of issues, and it was powerful that you know, to me, but even the fact though that I'm pretty sure that that's what kept you going for a little while with your addiction, you know, having that trauma.
Yeah, and I think so.
Of course. And trying 100%. To just like numb yourself and not deal with it, you know, and have to really like face it head on, because at the end of the day, you're a kid. It's not your fault, you know? And it's like we have all these emotions and things that you have to sort through. So if you can just have a drug, take a drink, pop a pill, and feel somewhat a little bit normal,
totally,
then I'm going to do it.
And I didn't even notice that it was like stemming from that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
For sure.
It was just kind of like, it's
not even feeling normal. It's trying not to feel sad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what? You know what? And I don't even know if the word is sad. Right. Confused is what ends up happening, because I had a, you know, a similar type of situation, and there's so much confusion that goes on with that. And although in my brain I thought that I was handling it just fine, I was numbing myself with my drug of choice happened to be speed. Meth, but it was called speed when I did it the first time. You know, the guy that sold it to me, I was 13 years old, and I had been sexually molested at like 8 through 10. And when the guy sold it to me, and plus I was a chubby kid, like I was overweight and got made fun of. And I remember the first time the guy sold me the speed and I went home and did a line of it, I was like, why didn't somebody tell me about this before? I was like, this is exactly how I want to feel for the rest of my life. And I did that for 10 years straight. You know, and it progressed just like you talked about. Like for me, it progressed. For me, it went from snorting it to smoking it to shooting it. And then once I started shooting it, jail became a regular thing in my life.
For sure.
100%.
And then it's
because you do almost have like a sense of control.
Well,
in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do. Especially if it's like, in your case, like a prescription drug, right? Yeah. You're going to take it as prescribed for a little bit. And then if you even remotely have the addict or alcoholic gene in you, it's on.
Well, I mean, I was getting creative.
Of course.
My neighbor downstairs where we used to live, college student, like, all right.
Totally.
Let me, buy yours from you. My, family doctor, I was getting, a script from them as well as getting a script from this psychiatrist. So I had it coming from, because God forbid I run out.
Totally.
I'm screwed.
Yep.
Yeah,
you can't get up.
No.
What's crazy too is like I saw the change like when you went through that at 18. So Haelie, like she touched base, like she always was. Like she rolled with all of us, but she was always like a good kid still. Like she was down to roll. She could always hang with the boys, all of us. But she would never go to the levels we did. And then obviously she had her boyfriend and everything else. And then I had moved out with a few of my buddies who were like full blown drug addicts. And my pad was like the crack house. Haelie went through all that and she started coming around. And I saw a different version of her that I've never seen. So like, obviously she had a boyfriend for so long. So she was like, I could gain a little bit of weight, whatever.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden she's coming around and her weight's like dropping. And like she's doing coke with us every night and she's down to like try this. And I was like,
you take someone with an eating disorder and you're losing weight and people are like, oh my God, you look so
amazing.
good. You're like,
oh yeah.
Well, I think too.
I went from the chubby kid to the skinny kid and I in a summer. One summer I started using before summer and I left my private school and I ended up at a public school. I'm sure people
were telling you how good you looked.
Well, nobody at my public school knew that I had ever been chubby Chad. And I got there and then all of a sudden all the girls were like, which girl do you like? And I was like, that one. And, and it was like a whole different ball game for me.
I just think like you touching on like a eating disorder, especially because it's one of those things where one of the main factors into having one, especially when it's like a binge and a purge or is to have that you are controlling what you're doing to your body, and so it gives like a high to some individuals.
Totally.
And it's something I think where especially like younger girls too. I mean, I remember because I was like a tomboy growing up, but I remember seeing like that Pepsi Cindy Crawford commercial, right? And I was just like in so much awe because first she's stunning, but also legs for days. She's like 6 feet tall, totally like that would never be my body type ever.
Yeah.
Because that's just not how God made me. But then it starts creating like these weird delusions in your brain. So then it's like, okay, I'm going to try and be a twig.
Yeah.
So that way you get like more attention. And so you're not the chubby Chad or the fat kid. And so it just starts this like, especially if you have any inkling of addiction in you, it puts you on this like roller coaster 100%. Of crazy madness.
100%.
That you're constantly juggling.
Now, did your eating disorder come after 19 years old?
It came after. It started at like 18 after that.
Slowly. I mean, not slowly, pretty much right after what I'd gone through.
Yeah, that's
and then it progressed.
Something switched.
That's almost like
it was weird.
A
Something
lot
switched.
of eating disorders are caused by a sexual abuse. Often, probably 90% of the time.
I think I've heard that, and I think just the way that I see it was I was like, oh, I don't like me.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I'm definitely not good enough. You know what I mean? Because I never like thought in high school like, oh, you have you kind of have some belly fat. I never even thought about it. It wasn't even a thought in my mind. I was actually pretty happy and pretty secure, and then after that it was kind of like, I always just felt like gross in my own body.
Yeah.
And then you think like, well, what did I do to did I do anything to
Exactly.
like bring this onto myself? You know? And I remember being in, sober living in my IOP program, and I was talking to my therapist. I go, gosh, I just like want to like reach out to him to like, you know, why? And she goes, there's no point of doing that.
Right.
You know, you're not going to get the answer that you want at all. And I did, of course, you know. Yeah. And basically the response that I got was, hey, it happened. I don't know what to tell you. And I was kind of like, okay, case closed type of thing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say that. I mean, I've never thought about like, oh, I forgive him. But it's just kind of like, I look at it as, gosh, I have 2 girls.
Yeah.
You know, maybe what I went through saved them from, who knows?
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who knows? But I was just kind of like, well, it is what it is. And I've healed so much from that, you know? But, yeah.
That conversation too, like it's crazy because she like opened up to me and I was only 18, you know?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I had never dealt with like
something heavy.
Something
like that.
so heavy, especially with the female. And it created like such a sacred bond between her and I, because I felt such a personal responsibility to like take care of her.
Yeah.
And it was wild because she always would hit me up like, why don't you want to be with me? And I knew I wasn't ready, but I never wanted to hurt her. You know, like I knew what she had gone through, and we talked for like 5 hours that night. Like we were partying and stuff, but like we laid together for 5 hours, and she told me some of the heaviest shit I've ever heard. And like, I knew I didn't ever want to like mess with her heart, you know, like I knew what this girl has gone through, and I had never even had such a real conversation in my life. So it was like that, I mean, we had already known each other for so long, but that built like this sacred bond because someone trusted me that much. And I really, really felt like this heavy responsibility to like love her for reals and like take care of that girl, you know?
Yeah.
So we didn't start dating for another year and a half, but, and I mean, there was like windows where you were like jamming me up, but I knew how strong she was, but I knew how valuable, like vulnerable she was as well, you know? And it's such a heavy thing, and there's so many emotions in that, but like that trust that she gave me, I knew I couldn't give her like all of me until I was like fully ready, because I knew who she was.
You obviously, prior to that happening though, provided a safe space, because and I noticed this about you, Jimmy, just through knowing you and your posts and how you carry yourself, is that you are a protector of the weak and the vulnerable, and which is a quality that I hold dear to myself. Like I protect people with everything I have, because I can't stand predators. Yeah. You know, because I've been preyed upon, and you know, and people are vulnerable, and she trusted you enough to tell you this because she felt safe, because she knew that you wouldn't hurt her.
Yeah.
Or use it in some weird or
you tell that that story to a predator, and they're going to use that to prey on you.
Well, and that's the thing too, like that. I mean, you just don't, as like an 18-year-old kid, there's not a situation very often where you lay with a girl for like 4 hours and don't try to do something with her.
Oh, I was just literally
and
talking.
She was like willing, but I knew what she just told me, and I saw these changes within her of like losing weight. All of a sudden, she's at my house every night doing coke and partying, and that was never the girl I knew. So I loved her as a friend, and we were cool. So like when we had that conversation that night, like, yeah, probably a lot of guys would have been like, oh, this is my opportunity to be like that shoulder to cry on.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm going to like kind of slide in and take this as an opportunity to have sex. And for me, it was like the exact opposite. I felt, man, just like this weight of like, she needs to just have me. She needs someone to take care of her and like genuinely love her and like just feel safe. And we just laid there for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours just talking.
Yep.
I love that.
Me too.
I love hearing that.
And that's probably you making that conscious decision then not realizing it at such a young age is probably why you guys are married today. Because
honestly,
if you capitalized on that small window of vulnerability that she had that night, you would have either went down a whole nother trajectory of like self-destruction possibly, because it could have opened up another floodgate.
And there was other things that I, things that I would never just say openly, but there were some things that I had been going through with, just things. And I'm like,
well, that was like the
start
of
to you,
it.
Jimmy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
It's
I don't
sort of
know
true, real relationship of communication on some heavy stuff that you don't normally just, casually have in conversation. Right. You're confining in this person because he makes you feel
I just
okay
felt
to do that.
Well, as a man, you feel very obligated to protect.
For sure.
And like, I wasn't a man yet, but I felt that responsibility like in that moment. And when I've never even thought about it too much, but when you were like telling your story and I was just watching you and listening to you, I was like, holy shit, that was like, that exact night was really like played a major role in the foundation of like the bond between you and I.
Well, it's weird telling my story. I mean, I've told it, not many times, but I've told it before. But it is weird. Like growing up, I was pretty normal. I mean, normal kid. I got everything that I wanted pretty much. I wasn't a spoiled brat, but like my mom liked to, take me shopping. And like my dad, like I said, like I had a good freaking life. I did. I got in trouble for my tone of voice, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And grades.
Yeah.
Other than that, graders when they were gone, but
that too.
But I feel like that's why it is one of those things where it's addiction and alcoholism. It doesn't discriminate, so it doesn't matter who you are, where you are. You could have horrible parents, you could have the best parents, you can have a ton of money, you can have zero money and be a horrible upbringing. It's just, it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't.
It just has this like unrealistic concept of a drug addict and alcoholic, because you see it growing up on like how they televise certain things where you just immediately think of like a terrible person that's like under a bridge that is disheveled and doesn't have anybody that loves them around them or something, when it's like that couldn't be further from the truth. Yes, that might be some, but it's so much.
Some of those people that are out there looking like that have people that completely love them.
100% living in mansions and have the best jobs and all of these things.
My dad was a doctor. My mom was a nurse.
Totally. Perfect
married.
Example.
I went to private school.
Yeah.
No other siblings as an addict.
No, I'm the only one.
He's the only one.
It's crazy.
We just had this conversation with Harper because she's turning 13.
Yeah.
One of her best friends, Haelie's best friend growing up, I've also known her since I was born. She was the only other friend that had a kid really besides us at a young age. So her daughter's a year older. She's a freshman in high school. Her good friend just
going
overdosed.
To be a freshman.
Her what?
8th grade.
Her friend just overdosed. So like a 9th grader, 13 years old kid,
died?
Kid,
14,
cool little style. And he just overdosed. So like my daughter was like, I remember being on the phone with them when I was at Memphis's house, and Natalie said the exact words is like drugs. We told our daughter like drugs do not discriminate. Your age, your innocence, and that's why it is so freaking heavy to know exactly what you're doing in any.
I mean, I tell her, hey, if you are somewhere and you have a headache, don't take even Motrin from someone.
Seriously,
like don't take anything, Harper, because this is so serious.
And good for you guys for having that conversation though, because I feel like sometimes parents are like,
I think that they're trying to protect
something,
them,
or like it's a weird taboo conversation. It's hard. So being like as much communication as possible, I think is like really, really good, because it is prevalent right now, especially with
and she's going to be going to high school next year.
Yeah.
Well, and like, look what happened to your friend too. Like, I didn't want to bring that up on the last time I was on because it wasn't my story, but like, you were buying Adderall on the street every day, and that happened to them. Like, good kid, married, family.
Oh shit.
Got Adderall laced with fentanyl.
Yeah.
She found him.
Damn.
Well, it's probably not laced. It's probably just a pill that's pressed to look like Adderall.
That looks like
because
it.
that's what's out on the streets. There's actually very few real pills out on the street. So anything that people are buying, if it's Adderall, if it's Xanax, it looks like but it's no.
Looks exactly like it.
Yeah.
Actually, HBPD posted that they'll post like, if they do drug busts, but they had like, gosh, so many bags of blue pills that were Adderall, fentanyl.
Yep. If you're not getting them from an American pharmacy with an American prescription, it's not.
Yeah,
So
you're playing
crazy.
roulette.
Yeah,
Every time.
Every time.
Because even if you think you're buying it from your friend, he might have bought it off the street and put it in his pill bottle and been like, well, no, these are my. So that's how they do it.
And when you're deep, when you're that deep, oh my gosh, you'll take anything.
Oh my gosh, for sure.
Just
I don't have anything. Oh yeah. Let me, if you come across someone that sells, Adderall,
zero thought.
you're like, oh, gold
Yeah.
mine.
I would be dead today because I would have taken whatever.
Oh, for sure.
Like I would get so high on meth that I needed to, do a little heroin to come down. Well, there isn't any heroin, or Xanax or Valium was better for me to come down than heroin. So, if I could get
You're trying to like level out a little bit.
yeah, because like I would, 24 hours was just getting going. I was usually like staying up for like 7 or 8 days, max of like 14. But, I was deep.
Yeah.
When I was staying up that late and doing that kind of, amounts of meth, I was deep working with the CIA.
But you know what, though? Honestly, though?
Detectives.
You're really
Detective
lucky that
Chad.
you didn't, like, really, fry your brain where you are, like, not well. Because you started
to where
so
you're like,
young. At 13, your brain's not developed until you're 26. So the fact that you are still uneducated, normal, you don't have, like...
You're not drooling.
Yeah, dude.
Well, not
I'm
always.
serious.
You
Because
guys,
that's a big thing, too, that kids need to know.
you guys are being so nice.
Oh,
No.
it could. I mean,
No, being
it's
serious,
good.
bro.
Like, that's such
future-wise,
a...
it could really.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, that person.
Yeah,
Aw.
where you're like, all of a sudden,
You
it
know?
can also make you, like, schizophrenic if you weren't...
Because
Or
there
slow,
are people.
slow, at least. Hey,
Yes.
Chad, hey.
Yes.
Well, here's the
Because
thing.
there are
you know?
people
Could you-
that have
Yes,
long
I've
time
seen
of
it.
sobriety.
Or a
and they're
heart
like,
attack
yes.
or something.
Could you
Dude,
imagine
totally.
how smart I would be
No.
had I never done
stop
any of this
it.
stuff?
No.
We can't judge you. We could just say, thank God you are who you are.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Jesus.
You know what's crazy is the amount of trust you put into people when you are getting like drugs off the street. Like,
Dude,
the
for real.
the things I would take.
Oh, you don't care.
The stuff I would put up my nose from a guy on the street. Like, if he handed me an
Yeah.
apple,
Off
I'd be
the
like,
toilet.
I would
Off
not
the
eat that
toilet,
fucking
right?
apple.
No,
But
it's
you hand
so
me a
crazy.
baggie, I'm
Yeah.
I'm
down.
doing it.
Right?
Me too.
I won't even shake the
Oh, when
dude's
you're
hand
looking
because
for
his
it,
hand's gross. He's
you're
like some
like-
crackhead in an alley.
Totally.
It doesn't
But I'll
matter.
take a bag out of his hand,
Right?
Totally.
put it in my body.
Snort right on-
Snort it up your
Terrible.
nose.
Yeah.
Even worse, put some water on it and stick it in your veins.
Yeah.
No freaking.
Terrible.
That's the worst because when you're sticking it
sick.
straight in your vein, there's no like liver filtering it
So
before you
heavy.
get
So
there.
bad.
It's so heavy.
Boom.
So bad.
Anyway,
But
So heavy.
you're the bomb. I'm like, your story is super powerful on multiple
Thank you.
levels.
Yeah. I had no
Congratulations to you and Jimmy. I mean, that's a true testament of ride or die till the fucking wheels fall off.
Yeah.
Like, I love that because that's
It's pretty cool.
Because marriage is not easy. So
No.
it's like there's going to be trials and tribulations, but the whole point is you ride together.
Yeah.
And,
And
that's
it's
what
cool because
clearly you guys have
today,
done.
today I'm like a reliable
Yes, you can get
person.
your
You know, I
counts
mean,
on you.
it took my parents I don't want to say a few years, but it took them a good while to be like, dude, we're so proud of you. And that feels good because I have such a
course.
great relationship with them.
For sure.
So close to them. Like I just not a liar anymore.
Yeah,
I have integrity, real integrity. Like it's crazy.
totally.
You know?
Totally.
I
It's
mean, I
like
can't lie
best.
anymore. I'm like,
could you get your
Tell the
job back if you wanted it?
no, my sister has that job
Yeah, she's
now.
like, no.
You know what's
I
so,
got it.
like rad too is like she always was like like I knew like no one trusted her. Like Haelie had like a stigma kind of stamped to her name for a little bit, you know, and then,
And rightfully so. For
Yeah,
people
for
listening,
sure.
it is important too because we will burn shit to the ground and manipulate and take. And like, it's good to have, like, it sucks at the time. Yeah. And that's why it means so much that everybody is like proud of you right now, is because they needed to set their boundaries for themselves. And sometimes 1000%. That has to happen, you know?
It does.
I know people that like love an addict and an alcoholic. It's really tough for them to set those boundaries because they want you to get well. And it's like.
Yeah. And like, I saw her through her sobriety. I saw the girl that told me what happened to her at 18. I saw her like strengths come out again. And then all of a sudden she found fitness and she's a coach. And then all of a sudden we're at home and these girls are texting her and calling her and asking her for advice, and they need help and they want to get sober, and they've been through some sexual abuse and some other really heavy stuff that they didn't have anyone to go to, and they're going to her. The girl that had like the stigma to her name is now like a full-blown fucking powerhouse leader. Yeah. And it's just the most amazing thing to be on the outside looking in going,
that's why I've never stayed quiet,
you know, about, like, this is rad.
About my recovery and because I just, if I could just shake people and just tell them how freaking life, like how great life is, you know, people who are still stuck in that addiction, like life's fucking good.
It's so good. And it like, and we all get to, really enjoy it, and we have a for the lack of word, I'm gonna say the superpower. We have the superpower of sobriety, right? Where, like, think about it, you know, whatever we go after with our full might, passion. Right?
It's either all in or all out.
Like, and we go sober, right? Yeah. So, like, you know, there's people that woke up today. They're not even addicts or alcoholics, right? But they did drink last night.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'm fucking a step ahead of them.
Yeah.
100%.
Today, and I believe that 110%. Like,
1000%.
So even if you're not an addict, I'm all about this like sober lifestyle, and that's why I really love you guys. I rated Jimmy Queen yesterday. I put Jimmy Queen is the #1 fitness influencer out there today. That is my rating. I agree on him, because I follow others
and they're frauds.
Most of them are first off, most of them are frauds. I can't stand what they're selling, because they're not selling fitness. You sell fitness and a fun life every day, and that's why I watch your shit. And all these other guys are selling, you know, Rolex watches, fake flights on you know what I'm saying. You guys.
Well, that's the biggest thing, dude. When you get sober and everything you're saying, all that surface level bullshit is bullshit.
Yeah. It is bullshit. Yeah. But some of these guys are also claiming sobriety, and
that's the rough one.
And that's where I'm like, are you really selling here? You know, are you selling fitness, or are you just selling?
I think it's so easy to kind of point those people out of like, oh, that guy's like he's sad, like, you know what I mean? He probably has some issues that like, you know, because I want to see the real shit. Just tell me who the hell you are. Tell me what you've been through. Like, you know what I mean? How's your life today? Like, obviously experience strength and hope. Like, let's hear it. You know,
and if you're having a rough day,
because every day I
want to know. Kidding? I'm having a rough day, but you know what? I'm getting up. I'm getting up, and I'm going after it today. No matter what, I'm showing up.
A lot of self-talk, prayer,
a ton.
Gosh, when I was first getting sober, future tripping was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna take me out. What does next week look like? You know, but you just have to. Every day.
Daily,
you know.
Breathe.
That's the best thing about like listening to all you guys at this table, though, is everyone is fucking authentically themselves. No one hides shit. Everyone's recovering out loud. You guys still have your hard days, and you know what? There's a lot more good days than there is hard days.
We put our hard days out because, and that's like part of what our weekly wins on Wednesday thing that we do. We put shit. Did we do it this week?
No, we have to.
Oh, what day is it today?
We're doing it after
Wednesday. Shit. Oh, sorry. Because we put it out there because weekly a win oftentimes is a struggle that we
overcame.
That we overcame.
Or pushed
1,000%.
And that's the thing is like it's crazy. I mean, maybe it's because obviously you learn things as you get older and all the things and you go through life. But it's like you can't experience joy without the pain. We wouldn't be able to talk the way that we talk to without going through all the fucking bullshit that we had to go through to get to the spot
There'd be
we're at.
nothing to talk about.
It wouldn't, and you wouldn't be able to relate and tell the story and have a testimony.
Joy.
Yeah,
and
pump
pain.
it up, pump it up.
Sunshine and rain.
I don't know the song.
Oh my
What?
God, what?
Keep going.
That's all I know.
Oh, that's all you
It's
know.
like, keep singing.
Yeah. Who sang that?
Isn't it Milli Vanilli?
No.
Oh my
no.
goodness.
I don't know. Yeah, they
fell
got-
hard.
I know, because they were-
They
Lip
fell hard
syncing.
because they were lip syncing.
Yeah.
Which
They
I
were
see-
frauds.
I see nothing wrong with the lip syncing
Yeah, I
as long
know.
as they came out and said, "Hey, we're lip syncing. Can you guys still love us? What's the big deal?"
Yeah, but they didn't. They tried to hide.
What about
And I guess
Vanilla Ice? He also became a fraud.
He did, but he's like a super multimillionaire now because
Vanilla?
of like property or something.
Nice.
What does it say? Still?
All right. Well,
Yeah.
this
now
was
we're getting
amazing.
But yeah,
podcast.
congratulations.
You're a
Really
savage.
good.
Yes.
Savage.
You guys are amazing.
Yeah, really good couple.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We love you guys.
Oh my gosh, and I'm so happy because it was on a whim in the sense of like actually being able to meet you guys and then have all this go down because I just ran into Jimmy at one of the conventions.
Yeah.
And,
Oh,
yeah.
it's just a fluke.
Yeah.
It was, like,
Before
so
that.
crazy.
Yeah, because the week before that we contacted him, and then he met
Oh, how
you.
weird.
Yes,
Really?
That was the fluke.
Was it?
Wow.
Yes.
That's nuts.
Marin was pushing Jimmy, and I'm thinking, nah,
Oh, yes.
he's fucking.
Wow.
That's right.
He's just, you know.
And
what
then
I
I,
mean?
He's
Jonathan.
some fucking dude.
He's
He's
just
another, he's
Who
another
is
dude.
this?
We've had a lot of these guys on before.
Yeah.
Marin
Yeah.
just kept saying, no, he's really different. He's good. He's good. He's good. And his wife is great. So, yeah.
And
he
then I met him, and
then
me and
he met you,
Jonathan met him.
then-
Like we were
Yes.
all like running out, like on the
Yes.
way out to for.
That's
a flight.
right. You
Yeah.
guys
Real
met
quick.
first in Ohio,
Yes.
and then Marin told me at the gym in the
Yeah.
bathroom. She's like, "Hey, you guys are sober." I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
It's so
Like,
weird how the world
Right?
could intertwine.
It's
Small like that.
bizarre.
Like,
Totally.
it's wild.
Everyone's connected."
Yeah, and
somehow.
it's
It
just
is.
the beginning, man, of
Yeah.
what's in store for
Yeah.
us all. Like, how cool is this? Because I kind of feel like we're all at this level of like we're about to fucking hit like this greatness, and
Yeah.
we're gonna do it kind of.
Together.
Together.
1,000%.
Oh, for sure.
Well, I like it because like also too.
I mean, she's
we've
already been
sober-
on greatness, but like Shane and I, we ain't.
No, but this is like the proudest I've ever been of anything I've ever done in my like career. You know, which
I
is
bet.
wild. I would have never said that 11 years ago. But
And I
We're
feel like
making
this is
sobriety
truly
look-
gonna be the
look cool,
greatest,
though.
the
100%.
greatest too.
you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
because
it's not like
I-
no one here is a
But it is
square.
fucking cool.
there's
though.
there's so many people that follow you that are not gonna fucking drink
Right.
Yeah.
because they want to do what you do.
They already have.
Yeah. You know
what I
People-
mean?
People hit them
Dude,
up
and
all the time. I haven't
and
drank.
the other note, like
No,
the way God
totally.
works and everything else, like we hit that mastermind meeting on Thursday. I was just on your guys' podcast. My boy Tyler reached out to me needing help, and he's like, he calls me at 11:30 at night, like I'm gonna die.
Oh my God.
And I just went to the mastermind meeting. So what do? I'm like, I'm calling Chad. I'm calling Shane.
Yeah, that's-
calling a few other people that were at the meeting. Like someone in that room that
gonna get-
because Chad put all these people in the room and I got all these numbers.
It takes an
Someone in
army
that room is
sometimes.
gonna help him. And then like I got a hold of Shane, and then I ended up getting a hold of Chad, and it was like, you guys fucking walk the walk, dude. There's people that talk a lot, and the people in this fucking room care. And it was just so rad that I even got to play. Tyler was thanking me like I got to play a part in his life, but it was only because I was put in a room with you guys, you know, and it just comes full circle.
For sure.
And like the stuff that you guys are doing, you're changing fucking lives. And like his life is different. And I always tell him, I'm like, bro, this is just the first page of a new chapter.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know what's going to come to your life, but you landing at that facility was just day one of a new life for you. And you're going to do some great shit. And like,
I mean, he's already talented.
oh,
You know,
yeah.
like when you're talented and then you get sober,
Oh my God.
and you get to
Yeah.
take your you
It's
get to
a
take your
superpower.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It is.
it's
Yep.
right back. You said
Take over the
superpower, bro.
world.
You're now it's like highlighted
true.
to an
Yeah.
extreme.
Yep.
And like you were saying, like people look up to me and don't want to drink. And that's what I love about him. Like he's also someone who just lays his feelings out and doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
You know, and I know so many younger kids, and not even just the younger kids, man. A lot of the guys that are like
Sure.
your age or older going, fuck, dude, this dude's being so real and honest. Like I've been struggling too, not with just drugs, but like mental health and all
Yeah.
these other things. And like That's why being open and like out loud with your story plays such a significant role, especially when it's just truly you and your authentic self, because someone is going to relate to that. Someone needs to hear about like the sexual abuse you went through. Do you want to talk about it? Maybe not, because it fucking sucks and it's hard, or your abuse or the stealing you did, regardless of what you did, but you're going to touch someone. Someone needs to know they're not not alone. And that's
I always
what
say
this
you
is
put
all
10
about,
people in
you know?
a room, and if what you say only reaches 1 or 2, you've done your
job.
part, you know?
Yeah.
But you know what I like about the what we're putting out there is that it's very different than what I feel like we've been seeing on social media as of late in the past couple of years, is that all of us take ownership for our wrongdoings. Like, we don't have victim mentalities because we are taught when we walk in, sorry, boo-boo, that is not, you need to go look at yourself in the mirror and figure out all your character defects.
Right.
Before you start pointing the finger at others.
You really have to take a good look at yourself.
Yeah. And I think that is really powerful too, because you hear so much of oh, it's their fault.
Yeah, I got nobody to blame but myself.
I'm the one. I'm the one.
I'm gonna grab the reins of life.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's my responsibility.
For sure.
But it is funny when you do think that way, where you're like,
oh yeah, I've had the victim mentality.
Oh,
before.
for sure.
Like, I'm here because
woe's me.
Them.
I'm here because my mom and dad, they just all my whole life told me that I would be nothing. My brother used to tell my brother's friends used to tell me that could I do I don't know if you guys ever watched the show, but there was this chubby black guy and his name was Rerun. I can't remember the name of the show, but they would tell me to do the Rerun dance because because they didn't have fat to jiggle like I did. Like that shit fucking, but you know what? You could take that and be a loser over it.
Yep.
Or you can take that shit and be a 50-year-old man like I am now, who is more fit than most 50-year-old men. And all of the guys that were making fun of me when I was young, they look like shit, they eat like shit, and they're probably still feeling like shit.
Yeah.
And
it's true.
I feel bad that they do, and I would hope that they could follow my lead now, because I would never really truly make fun of them about how they are today. But a lot of them do have they're not doing well.
Yeah. It's funny though when you get put down like that though, like you're always going to be willing to help those people out.
Of course.
Zero judgment. Like, do you need to change your life? Like, I got you.
Yeah.
Because I know how it feels. If you feel like shit, I know how it feels. I know how it feels to be hurting inside.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And I don't want
and
another
you feel so
human
good
being.
that you're like, you want to spread that.
Yeah.
I want to spread that. I want to spread the good news that you don't have to hurt.
That's why I think it's fucking rad being open about recovery. Who wants to stay quiet about it?
I don't know. I think that was I understand why AA did the anonymous thing for its time. But it also says in the AA book that we only, when they wrote that, it says we only know a little.
Yeah.
And basically saying more will be revealed. Well, this is the more that's being revealed, that like addicts are taking over. Addicts, alcoholics, we're taking over. We're covering out loud. Some of us fall down. Some of us relapse. Some of us die.
Yep.
Many of us get back up, but we help each other and we help each other and we help each other and we never give up on each other.
Never give up.
It is crazy though, going
world, dude. Like the power of being open and the power of social media and technology, like, dude, we could fucking take over for reals, and that's by, first of all, being open and honest with ourselves and those around us, and grow a team like you guys are doing, and putting together these meetings and having these podcasts, because there is no hiding.
But what's so crazy, like, when I was in treatment and going to, meetings, I'm like, oh, I am like these people. Hello, these people are rad. And I connect with them. And gosh, what the leader's saying is like, oh, I needed to hear that. It's like kind of going to church. You know what I mean? You're like, okay, I needed to hear that.
For sure.
They're speaking to me. So, yeah.
What are you going to sign on the wall?
Oh, yeah.
I love Haelie Queen.
On that one, we'll end on that. That's perfect. That's a good out.
That's a good one.
I love. It's amazing, actually. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
That's hilarious.